where I got lost in a volcano. I don't know if anyone's ever had like a near-death experience, but if it happens, they say your life flashes in front of your eyes. But it's a lot different when you're lost in a volcano and you have no food or water and you're walking for 3 days and you're basically telling yourself, I'm gonna die. Like I'm pretty much gonna die because no one's coming for me.
1, 2, 3, let's go. Let me show you, show you. You know that I got that soul, yeah. Show you. You know that I got that soul.
What was the purpose of signing up, paying for a ticket, getting ready, driving there, and sitting there around all these people if you're not going to talk to them? Go talk to them because those people are going through the same things you're going through, and hopefully they're in a different industry than you are, so that you can ask them the best question that I always tell people to ask people when you don't know them.
It's an art, raising capital. It's an art dealing with people, psychology. You're dealing with a brand. What are some key steps that people listening to this can take if they're trying to raise capital for a company?
Yeah, I got that soul. I got that soul.
Welcome to another episode of the $1 Million Branders podcast. I had the honor and privilege of meeting this gentleman at Growth Talks in Bel Air. It was such an awesome experience. 1 hour before my flight left to go back to Sydney, and it was brilliant connecting with him. He is an incredible entrepreneur, and I'm so blessed to have him on the show today and welcome him. Hi, Fabian.
Hey, great to be here. Buckle
Welcome
up. If you're a listener, it's going to be a great show. I promise you that.
Absolutely. I want to welcome you to the $1 Million Branders podcast. And I've got a bio for you. I'm sure many people are waiting to hear this. Fabian Garcia was born in Los Angeles to Cuban and Salvadorian parents. He developed a deep passion for learning early on. Graduating high school a year ahead of everyone else, he set his sights on a career in law with the United Nations, delving into politics along the way. His fascination with political rhetoric led him to speechwriting, where he honed in his ability to connect with people through words. After college, he ventured into real estate and finance before a transformative journey to Thailand, which sparked his wanderlust. Traveling extensively across Laos, India, and Colombia, Fabian uncovered universal human traits that transcended borders. However, it was a near-death experience in Nicaragua, lost for 3 days after a volcanic climb gone wrong, that redirected his life towards helping others. Returning to Los Angeles, he penned a book on his travels, propelling him into the world of publishing and ultimately Hollywood, where he thrived among the elites. Recognized as a VIP host of the year, Fabian merged his insights into human behavior with marketing prowess, founding successful businesses and mentoring others. And in 2020, Fabian cycled across America in just 30 days, a testament to his resilience. Joining BankX as CMO and founding Breakaway USA, Fabian continues to influence cultural discourse and empower entrepreneurs through platforms like the Growth Talks that I was at in Beverly Hills, cementing his role as a prominent voice on pressing societal issues. Besides from that, Fabian, I know that you own an agency called SEO You're doing some incredible things, and we're going to touch on your chess playing ability too, because I know we spoke about that in person, but
Yeah.
I would love for you to tell a little bit about your story, how you got started as an entrepreneur, and then we'll deep dive into your brilliant mind.
Thank you. That's an incredible intro. And thank you for everyone listening. And I hope that wasn't too long of a bio, but I've had quite a crazy life, and it's kind of hard to sum it all up into something very concise. But I've loved knowledge from the very beginning. Since I was 13 years old, I was reading law books and just wanted to be a lawyer. And then I realized that a lot of my lawyer friends in politics were miserable and addicted to some drugs. We'll call it devil's dandruff. So I chose not to do that. Got into real estate because it was really good money at the time, right before the 2008 crash. So I actually got into like 2005. I learned a lot there. And, I will say working in sales, if anyone listening has ever done a sales job, you understand that you learn a lot about the human condition and about what drives people, especially getting over those initial rejections, which is, I think, critical for any job you're ever going to have, whether it's business, relationships, family, it doesn't matter. Getting rejected is actually very good. It builds character. And so went from that started traveling, just found a love for traveling, meeting people in different cultures, going off the beaten path and just living with families, being in hostels, like actually raw traveling, not, staying in hotels by yourself or with I was by myself. Um, and I learned a lot traveling for 5 years, backpacking for 5 years. And, after I got lost in a volcano, uh, I don't know if anyone's ever had like a near death experience, but if it happens, you say your life flashes in front of your eyes. But it's a lot different when you're lost in a volcano and you have no food or water and you're walking for 3 days and you're basically telling yourself, I'm going to die. Like I'm pretty much going to die because no one's coming for me. Um, and you think about everything you've ever done in your life slowly, bit by bit. And more importantly, you think about everything you haven't done in your life. And one thing that kept coming back to me when I was lost, and I was telling myself, well, this is probably going to be it. I just don't want to die 20 feet from like the road and they find me and they say, oh, he could have just walked 20 feet and he would have been there. I didn't want to be, I've heard those stories many times and I don't want to be that guy. But so you think about what you haven't done. And I came back and I said, I have to do something big. I want to walk across the country. That was my big thing. And unfortunately, I had a pretty nasty concussion and my leg didn't really work when I hurt my leg, broke my leg actually. And anyway, ended up cycling across the country a long time after back in during COVID. But I think just for anyone listening to that, I've had a very interesting life to say the least. But there's always been this one commonality that comes forward, and it's how to help people. And that's just kind of what I want to do is help people and what I've always done, whether that's in business, whether that's in relationships, whether that's in just understanding how other humans operate. So as a business owner, you can really, really take charge and create a product or service or make your sales funnel more efficient and give people what they need rather than what you want to sell. And I think a lot of people forget that. It's not about what you want to sell, it's about what they need. And I know your show is about building $1 million brands. And I think Steve Jobs said it best. He always can't think of the word right now. Repeated. I can't believe I can't think of the word repeated. But he always believed in just what is a product going to do for the person. The last point I'll make is one of the most interesting things in his book Jobs. It's his biography. Was that when he wanted to create the iPod, he took all of his best guys into a room, and back then early 2000s, it was all about the stylus pen and these smartphones, or not smartphones, but back then there were smartphones where you'd have all these menus and things. It's like a computer in a little Palm Pilot. And he says, you see all these menus and all this stuff and the stylus. He goes, I want you to take all this and make it one button. In the book, it says that the people were just like, I think he's finally lost his mind. Like, I think you want us to put everything into a button. And he said, yes, because we're going to revolutionize the way things are done. And that's where the iPod wheel, well, not even, it wasn't it was a wheel and a button. And that's where that came from. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, firstly, wow, your life, I do feel, and I've always said, out of adversity is born advantage. And I think that you are a true example of this, just not even from a business perspective. I think obviously things in your life have led up to you being one of the best entrepreneurs that you can possibly be. And I think you have encountered so much adversity. So thank you for that. And I know psychology plays a big role in branding and business. And one of the things that I found so interesting in the short time that we met, I was like, you play chess? What's the story with that? And I really want to delve deep into that because I want to tap into the psychology behind making the big moves in business and sometimes even in life, because I do feel like it overlaps. No one wants to be in a job that we hate. And I think as an entrepreneur, it's also, it's not in your blood. You can't do it. But the other thing is people make the word entrepreneur sound fancy. And I think it's about making the right moves that lead to the big moves. And sometimes it's the little steps that enable you to checkmate. So can we tap into your chess ability and how has chess helped you to navigate through business and through the things that you've done?
Yeah, and by the way, I think entrepreneur only sounds fancy because it's French, so that might be it too. But chess is something that I took on after I got back from my cross country bike ride. I never really rode a bike before, and I set it out to ride across the country in a month. because I just wanted to get it done in the month. It was the dumbest and smartest thing I've ever done in my life. And so I got back and I said, well, what's my next challenge? I set these very, very, very big goals for myself. I watched Queen's Gambit, very successful Netflix show, and
Love
I, you know, I
that movie. Love it.
incredible show. And I'd played chess, casually all my life. And I said, I think I want to get good at chess. I want to see how good I can get at it. So my goal was top 10% of the world. And I just started learning, watching YouTube videos, playing competitions. Not even realize that when you have a competition, there's a certain, you have to write down all your moves, and there's a certain way that you write the moves, and a certain way that you reference pieces and where you're going to move and what the pieces are doing. I had no idea. Learned on YouTube, and so last year I was able to get the top 5% in chess and in blitz. So that was my goal. It was top 10%, but I got to top 5. And so now I've fulfilled that goal, and now I'm on to the next thing. I still play chess, but now it's more casual. It's not super, into it as I used to be, but I do still play. And one thing I will say, if anyone wants to learn chess or thinking about or saying, why would I learn how to play chess? Your analytical mind will get so good at solving problems because that's literally chess. You're trying to outcompete the other person, and it's impossible to learn every move in chess because there's a number, and it's called the Shannon number. This mathematician ended up calculating this thing, but I believe it's after each player makes 5 moves or maybe 10 moves. Don't quote me on one of the two, either 5 or 10 moves. The amount of possibilities for the end of the game, there are more outcomes for that game of chess than there are stars in the universe.
Wow.
And I know it sounds crazy, but it's literally called the Shannon number. So chess is incredible because people every day, they play a few moves, and then a move that one player made has never been made in the history of humanity. You are playing an entirely new game of chess that no one has ever played. And it's so incredible because all those games go into a database. And then players will start searching certain move sets and say, oh, look, the one guy 5 years ago played this exact move set. What did he do? And how can I learn to beat an opponent that's going to do it? So it's incredible. Chess is just something else. And I mean, I definitely would say play chess if you can.
Definitely. Your mindset, I'm so excited to tap into it because you've been involved in both startups and I'm going to call it established businesses. What are the key differences in strategy and mindset required for each stage of business growth for both? Because it's very different with a startup and established business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not to get into the whole financing aspect, like how do you finance startups compared to like established businesses? But when it comes to actually starting a business, the one thing I always ask people, and it's kind of maybe a question that doesn't really get asked enough, and it should, because it will help people not waste so much time, effort, and money, is why are you doing this? Why does a product exist? Like, what is it going to do for people? Like, what utility does it have? Is it just something that's going to make people feel superficially better, which is okay? If it's just a superficial product, which is completely fine, know why it exists and say that and understand that. Because a lot of times, as business owners and entrepreneurs and startups, our elevator pitch, it makes it seem like we're all trying to cure cancer, become the next Elon Musk. And sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it's like, I just want to make money to have a better life, and that's completely fine. But just don't lie to yourself. When you meet with people, don't overcomplicate things. Elevator pitches are great. We become a society that tries to sound smarter by using bigger words or by inserting all these buzzwords and stuff like that. I mean, just keep it simple. And then know who your audience is. And this is a term that gets used so much, but I really think it's true. And whenever I consult with brands or I start my own thing, I always think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So Abraham Maslow, he was a man of many talents, but one thing he did is that he created and it's pretty well known. It's called it's a pyramid. And okay, perfect. So and then I would definitely suggest studying someone like Hegel. Obviously, I don't agree with everything he says. I just want to be frank. But George Hegel was this old German philosopher who actually influenced Karl Marx, who invented communism or Marxism. Anyway, but he talks about knowing about how to understand who you are from the outside in. right? Self-consciousness.
Yeah.
And he actually says something really incredible. And what he talks about is that you are a different person to every single person that you know. So to yourself, you know all of your faults, you know all your bad stuff. So the way that you think about yourself is not the same way anyone else thinks about you. Everyone has a different little shade or way that they think about you. So to be self-conscious is to understand, to look at yourself from the outside in. And in business, it's so integral because you have to do that constantly. What stage of my business am I in? How do I look to other people right now? Put yourself outside of yourself and look at yourself. That's what he talks about, being self-conscious. And I think that it's important at each stage, every so often, that you just take maybe a day or two. For me, I do it in a night. It takes me a few hours, but I look at everything that I'm doing. And I said, if I saw myself, what would I think about this person? Knowing only from the outside in. Because in business, you have a brand and your personality is basically your brand if you're a front-facing person or you're visible in your own company. So what are you doing? How are you dressing? What do you look like? How do you sound? What's your brand? And a lot of people don't take the time to do that. They're just focused on, we need to get more money and more sales. But at the end of the day, if you're not happy doing what you're doing, why are you doing it?
I love it. It's internal psychology, and it definitely affects the external psychology and how people look at you and how people view you as a brand. So thank you so much for sharing that, because I'm definitely one for personal branding. I feel like that is your impact. Everything you touch, everything you put your name to is so important in this world that we're living in. That's what's going to make or break you, I believe. But how important is it to have a personal brand? I know you've built a great one. And what advice would you give to entrepreneurs looking to really build a strong personal brand that is authentic? Because I think that's what you've done. You've gone in your own different directions. That's actually, you're standing for something.
Yeah, it's one of the most important and also hard things that I've done, because what I do is I speak a lot about politics. My family came from communist Cuba in the late 60s. So I understand what happens when a country becomes communist. Number one is that all your entrepreneurs, extinct. You cannot be an entrepreneur in a market that is not free. And in an overregulated market, there is no freedom. So entrepreneurs like myself, I see this and I'm like, no, I want to do what I want to do, because pure capitalism is about who can do things the best and the most efficient, or create a process that's slightly better than someone else. And that's what keeps this competition going. That's why you and I are talking from opposite sides of the globe, because somebody invented a camera and someone's like, I can connect that. Someone's like, I can do it better. Let me create the internet. So we're all products of technological and material sciences type innovation. So I got really into the politics. And then I said, okay, I'm talking about marketing and making videos about space and technology because that's what I love. But I see this glaring issue. This is back in 2020.
Yes.
You can't say the words you want to say anymore. You have to self-censor yourself. I don't like this. I don't like the laws that are being passed. I started talking about them. And then I had a decision to make. You can't bifurcate both things. If you go political, you're going to alienate people who don't agree with you. And if you're a business person, you want to make everyone happy because you want to make money from everybody. So, I had this introspective look that I talked about earlier one night. I'm saying, what am I going to do? Am I going to keep talking about marketing, or am I going to do what I feel needs to be done? And I said, I feel like I have to help people and tell them about the stuff I read about what Marxism really is, et cetera. So I went that route. So my image completely changed. Even though that was me, the front-facing person who I was always marketing, business, how to create the best everything, and that's the direction I went. Now, it did help me in the fact that people really, really trust me now, because I've put everything on the line. I get death threat. People try to hack my stuff. It's just crazy. I'm so shadow banned on Instagram right now. The LA Times wrote a hit piece about me. It's just incredible because I speak the truth. So what that's done is I'll call it serendipity, is that because I've gone and done something different, but I still do the other stuff. People are like, you know what? I trust him because he's actually putting everything on the line. He's not just trying to be this cool, fancy guy driving around in fancy cars. No, I'm in the gutters fighting this stuff. And because of that, that's affected my brand and my image. Now, I don't say, I'm not telling you to do that or anyone else to do that. What I'm saying is really take a look at yourself and say, I want to be myself, but I also want to make money. how can I do that? The first thing I will do is I'd say is just practice your speaking voice and make content that lives on the internet forever that you want to be there. Because what's the first thing you do when you hear about someone or a product? You're going to Google it, right?
Absolutely.
And do you want someone else passing judgment on you? Do you want the first words a potential client it reads from someone else that's not you? Absolutely not. I want them to get the information from the horse's mouth from me directly. And if I
Yeah.
don't have any content online, I'm going to allow someone else to make the determination whether or not they buy from me. That doesn't make any logical sense. So create content, put it out there. Doesn't matter what you say, just show that you're a real person and people will trust you more.
Hey guys, so if you are enjoying this episode, if you have gotten value from this episode and it has changed your life by teaching you things, I'm going to ask you a huge favor. If you would subscribe, like, follow, and share with people so we can bring more incredible guests to the Million Dollar Branders podcast to serve you better, so you can make more money in your business, in your life, and accelerate your growth into becoming the $1 million brand that I know is possible for you. Thank you, and my greatest appreciation to you. I love it. So for those people who aren't, let's call it being real, what advice can you give to them? Because I think there is an element online with most people around, I'm going to call it fear. So how do you counteract the fear of really stepping into your truth as a brand? And it doesn't matter if you've got a marketing agency. We have listeners and viewers from all over the world. What advice can you give to those people?
Yeah, I would say it really comes down to what your ultimate goal is. I live in Hollywood. I was born in Los Angeles, so there's a saying that we say, "Fake it till you make it," and it's very true. I mean, and it
Everywhere.
works time and time again, right?
Yeah,
You build it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially, to get a more fancy name, where you create the life that you want to live, and then eventually it comes to you. And this is where all these um, new age scientific people say, oh, what's that book, The Secret or something, where you just
secret.
like manifest something. I mean,
While you're
all of
watching
these guys,
Netflix and chilling
yeah.
and eating popcorn. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, all those books are just very, very small parts of older writers like Aristophanes and Socrates, and they just take pieces from them and they make a very easy to read book. Not hating on them, but I would just say if you want to go to the source, go to the source and really learn what they mean by that. But I would say if you're going to become the person you want to be, then really believe it and really become that person. So we call it a gimmick, right? In wrestling, we call it a gimmick. Hulk Hogan, he lives the gimmick. He still wears the bandanas. He still has the handlebar mustache. Wears the Hulk Hogan thing. That's his thing. Ric Flair. Ric Flair is always in jewelry, always in suits, right? That's
Yeah.
him. Now they've like become the gimmick, so we call it living the gimmick, meaning they don't shut it off. I mean, maybe in their private life they do, but at this point, been doing it for so long, that's become them. That's completely fine. No one's going to tell you how to live your life. You live how you want to live it. But what people get into the issue, they get into problems with is when they try to be two different people with two different groups of people, right? And then you're just being fake.
Yeah.
So if you want to hold yourself to a higher standard, it's not really faking it to you making, it's just evolving to someone and holding yourself to that standard the entire time, right? I mean, this is what religion does. You come in one way and you hold yourself to a standard and morals and values that are expected of you. You become a better person. It's the same thing in business. If you want to elevate your brand and your personal image to something else, write it down. What do I want to be? Not just dress fancy or have a fancier car. Come on, that's everyone wants that. But what about you? Do you want to espouse to people? Do you want people to come away and say, you know what, that person did this? That was really cool. Write those down and just practice that every day. And over time, you'll literally become the better version of yourself. And then when you do things that aren't at that level, you feel bad for yourself, or you feel bad at yourself, right? They call it the id, and the super ego. Sorry, the id, ego, and super ego. And so the id is essentially just your subconscious body, right? All it knows is to survive, eat, sleep, have sex. It's just very primal. Then you have your ego, and your ego is the one saying, hey, maybe don't do this. Maybe let's not eat that tub of ice cream because it's bad for us. So the ego is always fighting with the id to make it go on the right path. And then you have your super ego. So your super ego is looking down at you and it's almost like judging you, because when you allow your id, which is like your primal nature, to eat that extra ice cream, your ego loses, but your super ego is the one that gives you shame. That's why you feel shame. You're like, where does it come from? And
I'm
obviously, this is
looking
all
at it
theory.
now. I'm like, don't get any ideas.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
so anyway, when you build your personal brand and you become that person, when you fail to be that person that you want to be and that you're telling people you are, your super ego will look down on you and shame you. Hopefully, you'll be shamed, because if you don't feel shame, then there's something wrong with you.
100%. And I love how you speak about standards, because I believe you've got to be the standard that you actually seek, always, in everything, in life, in business, in when you're working out, whatever it is. And I believe how you do one thing is how you do everything. What are your standards that you live by if you had to pick your top 2 or 3?
I would say always be truthful to yourself. And this is kind of a cliche, but I mean, it's really true. You know, the older I get, the more I realize all these cheesy sayings that we call cheesy are actually
Or
the
not?
most truest statements. That's why they keep saying them over and over again, decade and generation after generation. I'm like, wow, they figured this out a long time ago and nothing's changed. But yeah, I would definitely say that. And just honestly, be true to yourself. And you have to go after the life you want to live. If you don't like something, stop doing it. There's the
Absolutely.
worst thing. There's nothing more sad that I see to see a millionaire that's miserable. I call them miserable millionaires, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
The second thing that I would say is never stop learning. You have elasticity in your brain, right? The older we get, the less it becomes our ability to learn. Our elasticity diminishes. But if you're out learning new subjects, don't be what I call, well, I don't call it, but it is the term called idiot savant, meaning someone who is very good at one thing and horrible at everything else. These are those miserable millionaires. Sure, you're going to make money. Okay, great. You understand how to make money. Good for you. What else? If you're a guy, when you talk to a girl and you're a millionaire, imagine yourself being a millionaire and you're talking to a pretty girl. What are you going to talk to her about? Is it going to be just about your money and what you have?
Yes.
I mean, think about what kind of girl's going to come after you. I mean, sure, the girls are going to just want you for your money, but what if you can get a girl without even talking about what you have or what you've done? What if you can go on an adventure with her and you just pick up on what she's saying and then you go deeper into that? Um, and that's what I mean by just learning stuff. So you want to be able to be in any environment around anybody in business and be able to talk about whatever subject that's being brought up. Because if you're looking for money, if you're looking for financing, for angel investors, et cetera, whatever, people are going to want to work with people that they get. And if you're over here talking about one thing, they're not going to get you.
100%. Love that. And thank you for making it relatable. I think so many people need to hear that. So let's talk about industry trends, because I know you're across real estate, you've got the SEO company, you've got all these things that you're working on, but I think trends are something that come and go, and especially with all the technological advancements, how do you remain relevant in innovation in all your ventures that you work on?
You know, this is incredible because this is actually my speech at the Growth Talks last week. It's called How to Not Become
That I
Obsolete as a
missed.
Business Owner. Yeah, that you would left right before. Uh, One of the biggest things, and I'll take some points from the speech that I made, but essentially it's kind of like what I said, never stop learning. The world is changing at a breakneck pace. It's so fast. Things are changing so fast, and technology and innovation is happening so fast. It's impossible to keep up with it. Impossible. You just can't. I try, and I do this for a living, and even stuff is happening where whether it be AI, neural networks, material sciences that we can't even fathom, and they're changing all the time. So don't try to learn everything, but try to learn a little bit about everything. At least keep your nose to the grindstone, as they say, or your ear to the ground. Go to events like the one that we have, the Growth Talks. Go to business networking events, meet other people, and when you meet them, you have two decisions to make. When you go to an event, let's say you go to an event, you're dressed nice, you go there, you take someone because you don't want to be alone, and you're there, and you just talk to the person you already know the entire time, and then you go home. Like, what was the purpose of signing up, paying for a ticket, getting ready, driving there, and sitting there around all these people if you're not going to talk to them? Go talk to them, because those people are going through the same things you're going through, and hopefully they're in a different industry than you are, so that you can ask them the best question that I always tell people to ask people when you don't know them and you
Love
know they're in
that.
business.
I
What
love
is
it.
it that you find is working for you in this current environment? That's all you
Mm.
got to say. They will tell you what's working for them, and you can pick up on things like that. And then that way, you're always ahead of the game, or you understand strategies that are working, or you see what's happening. But I would say that's one of the most important things. Obviously, listen to your podcast because you have great guests on that are espousing really good information as well. And then also, never focus too much on what you're doing. And so the way I phrased it is, let's say you have a product and you want to get your product converting as high as possible, increase efficiency. You're doing what I call operation on different parts of your sales funnels, your email open rates, et cetera, your SEO. When you're so focused on one thing, the world keeps going. And if you don't look, it's going to pass you up and your product is going to become redundant, or it's not going to sell. Your conversions are going to go down. A lot of people are like, why are my conversions going down? Well, did you know that there's this new software that's doing something that you're not doing? Or there's a new product on the market that's basically doing something with a sales funnel that's better than you're doing. So if you're never looking at that, you're going to be focusing on this and then trying to tweak your sales funnel to see why it's not working as well. But the whole time, it's not even your sales funnel's fault. It's because you have the wrong product, or you have the wrong kind of sales funnel as a whole. Or Google's algorithm changed, and now your website's not ranking for SEO. They have 1,700, the last I checked, computer science majors over at Google changing the algorithm. You're not going to beat Google's SEO algorithm. All you can do is catch up. It's like surfing a wave. You just want to try to get on that wave. So those are just some of the ways.
Wow, I love it. And such valuable advice. I hope that you guys are taking notes if you're listening. And I'm very upset that I missed your talk at Growth Talks. However, I just know it would have been brilliant and such good advice for entrepreneurs, I think, in any industry. So, Fabian, let's talk about risk taking, because I think that when it comes to risk taking and decision making, it's a very important part of the entrepreneurial journey. How do you make, or I'm going to say make good decisions, whether it's building a business or in life, when it comes to building your business?
Now, let me preface this by saying I am an extreme risk taker, and I'm very averse to
Right.
adrenaline rushes. So what worked for me may not work for you. It really depends on what kind of person you are. But so many times I've said, I don't care if I fail, I want to do this. I don't know how this industry, the industry may not be a big industry at the time, but I go into something because I really care about it and I want to dominate that. So the smart thing to say, if I were just giving general business advice, is try to find an industry that's on the up and up and get in it, and then find people that are in it, and then you work together to be a staple in that industry. So for instance, when the marijuana industry got started here in California a few years ago, when it became decriminalized, so many of my friends went in, and a few that had big networks, existing networks, made a killing. I mean, stupid money,
Yeah.
like buy an island kind of money. And it was because they got in the industry and they had a network, and they're like, hey, we know people and people want marijuana, so why don't we get together? So that would be the smart thing to say. What I've always done is I've always taken an industry that's incredibly hard to break into, or that people really don't understand, or hasn't been utilized or profited enough on, and then use branding and imagery and psychology to find a way to create a product and then present that, and then literally change the market or develop the market or change the way that people think about the market. So that's what I personally like to do. It's more of like a challenge to me. But the smart way to be, would be to see what industry is up and coming. It's a wild west, right? There's not really any regulations yet, or the regulations are in the gray area. So you can really utilize your capitalistic mentality to find ways to make a more efficient process or a more efficient product for that market. That would be the smart thing to say.
Great advice. And the one thing I have to say to our listeners, the one thing that I really loved about speaking with you and dealing with you, even when it came to locking in the podcast, you were like, I don't care what date, what time, let's do it. Let's make it happen. And I think attitude is everything. But I want to talk to you about raising capital, because I know that you've got that company, Bank X, which is a crypto company. And I think that your psychology, everything you've been through, it's your attitude on how to raise money. And a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this are in that phase of, I don't know whether it's a crypto brand or whatever it is, it's an art raising capital. It's an art dealing with people, psychology, you're dealing with a brand. What are some key steps that people listening to this can take if they're trying to raise capital for a company? And I know your product's a great product too, so.
Thank you. One thing I would say is go look at Facebook's pitch deck from like 2000, I don't know, 5 or 6 or something like that. Go look at any big brand that you Instagram or any big service you use and go look at the pitch deck. It fucking sucks. Like it is so bad. If you read Facebook's pitch deck, you're like, they raised how much with this? And so I say that to say, don't overly focus on your pitch deck. People aren't going to read it at the end of the day. If you make it a 60-page pitch deck, they're going to get through 2 or 3 pages. So make it concise and fill it with good information. You don't want them to be able to go through it and make their own determination. You want to give them points where they're going to ask you a little deeper on the question and you can sell them. But if you put everything in your pitch deck, they're going to go, I don't really like it. And it could just be the words you used, right? If you don't understand sales copy is its own thing where it's like, what words are you using to actually sell the product? Not like copyright, but sales copy. The other thing I would say is just when you ask for the money, believe you're going to get it. You don't know how many times I've told people numbers and they're like, okay, yeah. And if I had been meek about it and say, well, we kind of want this much, but we can talk. No, I mean,
Off-putting.
are you not worth that much? Or like, are you lying to me? Or what are you trying to do to me? But if you say this is the number and you believe it and you say it with authority, people will say, yeah, like, wow, okay, sure. And you're gonna laugh and be like, well, that was really easy. But it's
Yeah.
all the way that you present it to them. And if you believe in your product and you understand it. So for instance, side diatribe right now, but Elon Musk, obviously he's my favorite person in the world. But one thing he does that no other CEO I've seen does is he understands the product, all of his products, to the most minute detail. I'm a massive fan of space. And Elon Musk knows every single thing about that rocket. And he's a CEO. So imagine how easy it is for him to go raise capital because your trust is in a man that knows every single thing about that product compared to a CEO, which is more of an executive role, right? They're more managerial. They know how to move money around. They know how to play the PR game. They know how to do this, right? Know everything about your product so that you're never caught off guard and understand and go through it and practice how to pitch your product. Don't make your pitch the first time in front of someone else. Do it again. Do it to other people and say, what was good, what was bad, would you invest, and why not? Write those things down and then make it better. I do speeches every month for the Growth Talks, and I do speeches all the time on my on my show, and I practice the speeches because if not, you're going to give someone a first draft and you're asking for $1 million. Like, come on, who in the right mind would want to take a first draft? No. Refine that thing. Do it over and over again, and then the next day, do it again. And over time, you're going to cut a bunch of extra stuff out that shouldn't be in there. And you're going to have a very succinct, very sharp and concise pitch. And you say that pitch over and over again.
Very valuable advice. And I know you've raised millions of dollars. So we're learning from an expert who's good at this. But I love your psychology background and just what you stand for. I feel like you've been in the trenches, which is very important. You have to practice if you want to get to the next level. So thank you so much, Fabian. My last question to you. What is $1 million brand to you?
Nothing unless you want it and you like it. Like the one thing about me is I've never cared about money. I've cared about the experience and about selling. Like the thrill that I get is when I create something and then it works. It works. You solve the puzzle. You're like, damn it. The money comes. But if you focus on making a killer product, and now obviously you have to know how to market it and things like that, right? But if you really care about the product, the money will come. So $1 million brand to me is something that you believe is worth $1 million. That simple. Because if you believe it, you'll convince other people that it is. And as we were talking about earlier, if you create the world you want to live in and you hold yourself to a standard to eventually get there, you're going to have $1 million brand.
Absolutely. And I've got shivers. So that was absolutely brilliant. And Fabian Garcia, how do we connect with you? How do we find you? I know you've got growth talks that you're very present at. So excited. Next time I'm going to make concerted effort to actually be there, even if I have to talk to Elon and get the spaceship organized because it's so far. But hopefully we'll get you to Australia too in the meantime, because I know you have friends here, but I'm like the coolest friend you have here at the moment.
I agree with you 100%.
I'm gonna put that out there. Tell us how we can find you, what you've got going on, and how can people get in touch?
Sure. My Instagram is Fabian Lux, Luxe. I am shadow banned, so it's gonna warn you when it's gonna tell you, are you sure you want to follow this person? He's a contentious figure. On Twitter, I'm Fabian underscore 1776, but you can find all that information at my website, FabianLuxe.com.
Excellent. And Fabian, want to congratulate you on your success, but also most importantly for standing in your truth. This is why I created this podcast, because I wanted to give people real advice that's raw, that actually means something. Whether it's controversial or not doesn't matter to me, but I know that everyone who comes on the show is honest, authentic, and congratulations for standing on your truth. And I can't wait to see what you do next. So we'll be in touch. Thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope you guys enjoyed it listening, and make sure you tune in because she always has incredible guests on.
Got that soul.